Hi, my name is Gerhard Gschwandtner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Dave Mattson, who's the CEO of Sandler Training. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Gerhard.
There's a book on leadership that you have published where it talks about the 8 communications dysfunctions.
Yes.
Let's talk about leaders. What are the common dysfunctions that they're dealing with and how to eliminate them?
Well, let's face it, communication, regardless if it's leaders or sales, is probably the most important thing, right? Because we as leaders are communicating our vision, expectations, coaching, training, mentoring, all is around this thing called communication. But what happens when we, don't do it properly? It's dysfunction. Couple one is overwhelming. And sometimes leaders know where they want to go, the other person doesn't, so they connect the dots without including you, and then they'll talk faster and faster. And the game is, if I can talk fast and connect the dots, I will overwhelm you. The other dysfunction is if I unplug. And that is way back when we were kids, if somebody said, well, I'm not getting my way, I'm not playing. And so the manager just kind of sits back or folds the arms or starts to multitask standing in front of you. And that's just a way to say, we're done, or I'm not paying attention, or it's not, we're not jiving. So that's there. And I think there's a lot of nonverbal cues that happen that we don't even realize as leaders. Whether we have this pained, face, or we just shake our head sometimes. And it may be because we have internal dialogue. It may not be because of what you said, but it does come across that way. And I think even in the sales side, there's some dysfunctions as well. If we think about it, even day to day, sometimes we talk too much. We have something called the 70-30 rule, where you should be listening 70% of the time. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in proportion they were given to you. And so allow that prospect to talk. Or if you're using buzzwords, buzzwords may help my confidence level, and I think it's building credibility, but in reality, it's making you feel uncomfortable if you don't know those buzzwords. So we have to be really careful. And I think finally, we have to talk from our style. I have a personality style which may or may not match you as either an employee or as a prospect or a buyer. So I get paid as a salesperson or as a manager to be flexible in my communication. You don't get paid as a prospect to change the way you buy. So I have to understand who I am, but more importantly, who you are and what do I need to do to explain my product or service or this project that I'm giving you as an employee from your perspective.
Right. So you're a leader of a very important company. Yeah. How do you guard yourself against emotional leakage? Where you're all of a sudden in the middle of a meeting, you check a message and then you send out a signal that your message is more important than the person who's listening to you.
I think the first thing you have to do is clear your mind and understand where you'd like to go in that meeting, but then let it go and really focus in on what you're saying. Because even when I'm listening to you talk, I have to not come up with my answer. I have to really listen to what you're saying. The minute I say to myself, I know where he's going, or here's my answer, I think that's the beginning of breakdown. Because a lot of times people make their important point at the end of their sentence, whereas most people stop listening at that point in time. So I think it's clear. Just clear the decks in your mind and focus on that person.
Right. So what about in the selling situation? Let's say I'm very anxious to make a sale. It's the end of the quarter, and I'm preoccupied with that, and I'm focusing on try to focus on the customer, but I'm still thinking I need to make that sale.
Yeah.
So how do you interrupt that? How do you stay in the flow and focused listening?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think, first of all, you should start off by asking questions versus showing up and throwing up. Because once you show up and throw up, then you're involved, versus me asking good questions. Because people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. So if you're going to push, people resist. Right. The best thing that you can do is to say to yourself, I'm financially independent and I don't need the business. And it tends to come to you.
Thank you, Dave. That's great advice. For anybody who'd like to get more information, go to sandler.com.